During the holidays, there's something so cozy about snuggling up with your family and your dog and your cat and a cup of warm cocoa and your very favorite Christmas slippers. So relax while I read you the story about a pine tree named Thaddeus. He wanted to be not only the biggest and the best, he wanted to be the most beautiful and be in the town square. Until he met a little boy, a little barefoot boy named Leo, who taught him what the true meaning of beautiful means. This is one of my very, very favorite Christmas books. It is my very favorite Christmas book, so I hope when I'm through reading, it becomes one of your favorites too. Beyond the valley and high on a hill stands a small forest, green and still. Happy trees grow there, they belong to the king. Sometimes you can even hear them sing. Each day they grow taller, wide and strong, waiting for Christmas. Now it won't be long until the royal woodsman comes search for a tree for the town square. Now who will it be? Only the biggest, the strongest, the best will be selected, removed from the rest, and carried in triumph to the valley below, to stand in the village, to shimmer and glow. Said Matilda the short pine to a hemlock named Bruce, "Do you think they might choose Big Samson the spruce? Or maybe Augustus, he's a great noble fir. Or perhaps Holly Berry, you can never be sure." "Pish posh," said a pine tree, his name Thaddeus. "It's quite plain to see who's a best among us." He stretched straight and tall, his branches held wide, and continued to speak, his words filled with pride. "I am the finest, the grandest, the best, the most beautiful tree from the east to the west. And those silly woodcutters surely will see, if they want the best, they can only pick me." The other trees rumbled and grumbled and said, "For a nice-looking tree, you've sure got a big head." "You're jealous," said Thaddeus. "Just wait and see who the woodcutters pick for the most beautiful tree." Then he paused for a moment to listen below. "I now hear them coming, and soon I will go. I'll think of your trees when I'm down in the square, all wrapped in fine tinsel and hardly a care." The woodcutters sang as they climbed up the hill, "We'll hunt and we'll search forever until we find the best tree, the tallest, the straightest, the biggest, the greenest, the finest, the greatest." Now the trees all grew quiet, standing straight and tall, as the woodcutters walked and inspected them all. And at last they stopped, and there they stood, before they thought the tree that would be good. "This is it," that proclaimed, "it's the one, it's the best, it's taller and straighter than all of the rest." And Thaddeus grinned, just bursting with pride, as he stretched out his branches from side to side. Kerwhack went the axe right into his trunk. It hurt quite a lot, then he fell down, kerplunk. This couldn't be how it was meant to be. Was this how you treat the most beautiful tree? He looked up at the trees as he lay on the ground, humbled and helpless. He made not a sound. The woodcutters loaded him onto a sled. As he slid down the hill, he trembled with dread. When they came to the valley, they slowed to a walk, and that's when the woodcutters started to talk. "Our Christmas will be rather bleak for this year. There's no fatted goose, only baked beans, I fear. The crops were so bad there's no money for toys. A pitiful Christmas for our girls and boys, but at least we'll have this beautiful tree for all to enjoy and lovely to see." It took 16 men just to raise him up straight, but once he was standing, he really looked great. People paused from their work and stopped to admire. What a beautiful tree, none's ever been higher. Then came a large crew with boxes and ladders, and brightly jeweled baubles piled high upon platters, fine silver and gold pretty ornamentations, far beyond Thaddeus's best expectations. The tinsel was heavy, the garland's great length, but Thaddeus held them up with his strength, determined to be the Christmas tree yet. No tree could be finer, on that he would bet. And there stood Thaddeus in the center square for people to come to awe and to stare, to oogle and boggle, to soak it and savor, then quickly they returned and went back to labor. But one barefooted boy, too little for work, stayed with the tree and played in the dirt. Thaddeus first wanted to shoo him away, but after a while he asked him to stay. The lad's name was Leo. He wasn't half bad. Although very poor, he never seemed sad, and for hours on end he chatted with cheer, and Thaddeus liked to have the boy near. But one frosty morning, snow covered the street, and Thaddeus looked down at young Leo's bare feet. "Where are your shoes?" he asked. "Aren't you cold?" "We've no money," shrugged Leo. "That's all I am told." Thaddeus gazed down at the branches adorned. He felt sad and confused and a little forlorn. He shook loose a bauble from the tip of a bough, made of fine silver and shaped like a cow. "Here, Leo," he said, "take this and go find a pair of warm shoes that will treat your feet kind." Leo blinked as he picked up the valuable toy. "Thank you, dear Thaddeus," he cried out with joy. The next day Leo came, but his feet were still bare. "Where are your new shoes?" asked Thaddeus. "Where?" "I'm sorry," said Leo, "but old Widow Edison was so very sick she needed some medicine. My feet may be cold, but I can get by. Without the medicine, the poor woman would die." "I see," said Thaddeus as he shook off a gold goose. "Here, Leo, now take this and go get some shoes." Young Leo shot off as fast as he dare, and Thaddeus looked down at his branch, slightly bare. "Surely no one would notice what's missing from me. They'll continue to think I'm a most beautiful tree." When Leo came back, he still had no shoes. "Don't worry," he said, "I've got some great news. The goose came in handy. It really was good. It bought a poor family a whole lot of food." "But what about you? What about your bare feet?" Leo shrugged. "It's okay. At least I can eat." Thaddeus gazed at his riches, the silver and gold, then to Leo's feet, now blue from the cold. "This is simply not right. It is simply unjust. Someone must do something. Somebody must. Come, Leo, come now in my branches and climb. Come fill up your pockets with all you can find." For the rest of the day, young Leo climbed high. It seemed the tree's branches reached clear to the sky. Then down he would come with fat bulging pockets and race through the town just like a fast rocket. And with the poor people, these fine gifts he shared, the townsfolk all cried, "At least someone cared." It seemed that their Christmas would not be so bad, for Thaddeus the tree had made them all glad. Just seeing their faces made him happy too, and at last little Leo wore shoes that looked new. Sure, Thaddeus saw that his branches were bare, but strangely enough, he didn't seem to care. Poor Thaddeus now understands his condition was not very lovely, a sorry rendition of what the king's tree was expected to be, for he no longer was the most beautiful tree. Just then he was startled by loud trumpets blast and clattering hoofs that thundered right past. But all of the horses stopped dead in the square, and men in fine uniforms looked up to stare. One climbed from his horse and gaped up at the tree. "Just what kind of joke is this supposed to be?" The others agreed, saying things just as mean, like, "This is the ugliest tree we've ever seen." Poor Thaddeus, embarrassed, just wanted to hide. Never again would he puff with pride. The shoulders declared, "This tree will not do. Let's throw it away and get one that's new." "Our king has been gone for nearly a year. Just what'll he think when he finally gets here?" Thaddeus knew that it didn't look good. "Come," said the leader, "let's make firewood." But that's when the town folks rallied around, led by young Leo. They started to shout, "Don't touch him!" they cried. "We demand that you halt. For the good, and we love him. It's not the tree's fault." The fussing and fighting went on for an hour while Thaddeus watched without any power. He feared that today would make history lore for the ugliest tree and the first Christmas war. And just when he thought that the battle was lost, he saw a fine caravan coming across the village square, heading straight for the crowd. No one else noticed. They were yelling too loud. The royal coach stopped, and the crowd turned to see the king stepping out not far from the tree. And like a great wave, the town folks bowed down to honor their king who'd come back to town. "Greetings," said the king, "too long I've been gone." He looked at the crowd and then asked, "What is wrong?" The leader stepped forward and fell to one knee. "Your Highness, we meant to get rid of this tree." Thaddeus felt the king's gaze fall on him, all shabby and tattered with a broken limb. "This tree's a disgrace," said the king. "It can't stay. Go on and remove it. Just take it away." "Stop," declared Leo, and then he stepped up. A shoulder growled loudly, "Go back there, young pup." "Hush," said the king. "Dear child, have no fear. What can you tell me that I need to hear?" Young Leo bowed down, then quietly spoke. "Your people were needy and hungry and broke. We had a bad year. The crops got no rain. Your people were hurting, and some even in pain. We'd almost forgotten what the season's about, but the tree stripped his branches to help us all out. And if it was wrong, then just blame it on me. But, dear king, I beg you, please don't hurt the tree." The king nodded sadly. "If only I'd known how badly you suffer, I would have raced home. How thankful I am that this tree wisely shared the wealth of my ornaments. How nice that he cared. Thaddeus was spared when the king's voice was raised. This tree will remain, its deeds to be praised. Tomorrow is Christmas, we'll gather to sing. Beneath this kind tree, our voices will ring. But in the late night, folks came to the tree. They all tied on autumns, though so quietly. And by light of day, Thaddeus looked grand, adorned with sweet gifts, each one made by hand. His branches were filled with such wonderful things, doilies and cookies and birds with real wings. This tree, said the king, has a reason for living, a reminder to all it's the season for giving. For on the first Christmas, God gave the best gift, his very own son, our spirits to lift. And so, said the king, his voice filled with glee, I hereby proclaim Thaddeus the most beautiful tree. And a Merry Christmas to all.